Imagine a world without rules, a place where there are no boundaries, no guidelines, and no one to enforce any form of order. No laws, no police, no courts. The institutions that we rely on to maintain peace and justice would be non-existent, a world where everyone acts solely in their own self-interest. Chaos would reign. Without a system to mediate disputes, conflicts would escalate uncontrollably. People would steal, cheat and harm others without consequence. The absence of repercussions would embolden the worst behaviours in society. Your neighbour could blast loud music all night. There would be no one to call to complain, no noise ordinances to enforce. Drivers could ignore traffic signals, leading to accidents. The roads would become perilous, with no traffic laws to ensure safety. Life would be, as the philosopher Thomas Hobbes famously put it, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish and short. Without a governing body, society would regress to a more primitive state. Clearly, such a state of anarchy is undesirable. The lack of structure would lead to widespread suffering and instability. We need rules to live together peacefully and productively. Laws and regulations provide a framework for cooperation and mutual respect. This is where the idea of the social contract comes in. It's a foundational concept in political philosophy that explains why we consent to be governed. It's a kind of unspoken agreement we make as members of a society. We agree to follow certain rules in exchange for protection and the benefits of communal living. We accept certain limitations on our freedom in exchange for the security and benefits that come with living in a structured society. This mutual agreement allows us to thrive, innovate, and build a future together. The social contract is not just about laws and enforcement, it's about creating a community where everyone can feel safe and valued. It's about building a society where we can all contribute and benefit from collective progress. By adhering to this social contract, we ensure that our communities are places where we can live harmoniously, support one another, and work towards common goals. It's the foundation of a civilized society. The social contract isn't a literal contract that we sign. It's not a piece of paper that we physically put our names on. Instead, it's an unwritten understanding that forms the foundation of our society. It's more of a philosophical concept that explains why we consent to be governed. This idea helps us understand the relationship between individuals and the state and why we follow laws and regulations. The idea dates back centuries, with roots in ancient Greece. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle pondered the nature of society and governance, laying the groundwork for future thinkers. However, it was during the Enlightenment that philosophers like Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau really fleshed out the theory. They explored the balance between individual freedoms and societal obligations. These thinkers argued that in a state of nature before governments existed, humans lived in a chaotic free-for-all. Life was unpredictable and often dangerous, with no overarching authority to maintain order. To escape this, individuals agreed to give up some of their natural rights in exchange for protection and order. This mutual agreement was seen as beneficial for everyone involved, creating a more stable and secure environment. This agreement forms the basis of the social contract. It is the implicit understanding that by living in a society, we adhere to its rules and norms, contributing to the common good. By living in a society, we are implicitly agreeing to its terms. This means respecting laws, participating in civic duties, and recognizing the authority of governing bodies. The social contract is what allows us to coexist peacefully and cooperatively, ensuring that our rights and freedoms are protected while maintaining social order. Thomas Hobbes, writing in the shadow of the English Civil War, had a rather grim view of human nature. He believed that without a strong ruler to keep them in check, people would constantly be at each other's throats. To avoid this war of all against all, individuals surrender their rights to an absolute sovereign, or Leviathan, as he called it in his famous book. Hobbes believed that any government, even a tyrannical one, was preferable to the chaos of the state of nature. While his views on individual liberty might seem extreme today, they highlight the fundamental human desire for security and order. Section 4. Locke's compromised life, liberty and property. John Locke, another influential English philosopher, had a more optimistic view of human nature than Hobbes. Unlike Hobbes, who believed that humans are naturally selfish and brutish, Locke saw people as capable of reason and moral behaviour. He argued that in a state of nature, individuals are free and equal, bound by the law of nature, which dictates that no one should harm another in their life, health, liberty or possessions. He believed that humans possess inherent natural rights to life, liberty and property. These rights are not granted by any government or authority, but are intrinsic to human beings. Locke's philosophy was revolutionary because it suggested that the legitimacy of government depends on its respect for these natural rights. In Locke's view, the purpose of government is not to suppress individuals, but to protect these fundamental rights. Governments are formed through the consent of the governed, and their primary role is to ensure that the natural rights of individuals are safeguarded. This social contract is a mutual agreement where individuals agree to obey laws in exchange for protection of their rights. Locke argued that if a government fails to uphold its end of the social contract, that is, if it becomes tyrannical and infringes on people's rights, then the people have the right to overthrow it. This radical idea empowered individuals to challenge unjust authorities and laid the groundwork for modern democratic thought. It emphasized that sovereignty resides with the people, not with rulers. This idea of a right to revolution heavily influenced the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. The American colonists drew upon Locke's theories to justify their break from British rule, asserting their right to establish a government that would protect their life, liberty and pursuit of happiness. Locke's legacy endures in the principles of freedom and democracy that continue to shape societies around the world today. Section 5. Rousseau's General Will, Finding Common Ground. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a French philosopher, offered a different perspective on the social contract. He believed that humans are naturally good, but become corrupted by society. Rousseau argued that the social contract should aim to create a society where individuals surrender their individual will to the general will, a kind of collective good of the community. Rousseau's ideas about the general will are complex and open to interpretation. However, they emphasize the importance of finding common ground and working together for the benefit of all. His work highlights the tension between individual freedom and the needs of the collective.